Bitcoin is not optional. Like what people don't understand is, by you not adopting Bitcoin, you are getting poorer in Bitcoin terms. Like, the meme, have fun staying poor is real. And so it's not optional. It's not like, I'm just not a Bitcoin guy. Well, then you're not I want to live in a big house guy. You're not I like vacations guy. You're not I'm going to eat high quality food guy. You're not a high quality of life guy. You're on a sinking ship. What we've seen is gold leads Bitcoin directionally, then Bitcoin catches up and some. And so I continue to think that will be the case. And I think Bitcoin will vastly outperform gold in the grand scheme of things. Is gold going to outperform Bitcoin on this day or this week or this month or the rest of this year? I don't know. I mean, my default answer is no, because on net, Bitcoin outperforms. But, in small windows, it's totally possible. But, Bitcoin is the better money. It's been the better performer its whole life. And I think it'll continue. There's no reason that's going to change.
Bitcoin is once again making headlines, with price forecasts for 2025 ranging from $118,000 to over $250,000 per coin, while some optimists still talk about the possibility of reaching $1 million in the coming decade. Bitcoin is now maintaining steady above $118,000 despite market volatility, helped by growing institutional usage and expanding public acceptance. Strike founder and prominent Bitcoin supporter Jack Mallers claims that Bitcoin has developed into a clear representation of the world monetary system. According to him, Bitcoin has evolved into the most accurate gauge of the world's money supply and liquidity, making it more than just an alternative asset. Mallers contends that Bitcoin will continue to rise in value as long as central banks create money and increase their balance sheets, providing a shelter for people looking to shield themselves from further currency devaluation. If you're intrigued by bold predictions and deep financial insights, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more engaging content. Thank you for your support and enjoy the video.
All that I'm saying, combined with this news, gold passes euro as second reserve asset as central banks buy. This was reported by the ECB, the European Central Bank, came out, said, gold has passed us, the euro, as the second asset holding cash balances. Take a look at this chart, you guys. So here's what we're seeing on the left. The blue is the dollar. This little yellow here is the euro. The orange is, basket of other currencies, so everybody else. And then the green is gold. Look at gold on a tear. So you saw gold here after the 2008 financial crisis, and then you see gold now coming again at 20%. So gold is larger as a higher share of gold in global foreign reserves, larger than other currencies, larger than the euro. Also noteworthy, the dollar now officially under 50%. Officially under 50%. Big deal. Look at when it has breached this. Only briefly after the global financial crisis, but it's traditionally been over half of foreign reserves. It is now under 50% and falling. Gold is 20% and growing. Central bank gold purchases in the price of gold. Look at 2022, 2023, 2024. That is not just marginal growth. That is substantial growth. They've nearly doubled the amount of gold they're buying. 100% growth. This is not a drill. For everyone that is saying, oh yeah, I'll just wait for the world to de-dollarize. I'll wait for neutral reserve assets to be relevant again. I'm like, are you paying attention? What do you think is happening right now? We're literally living through it. Pull up a chart, pull up a Bloomberg article, pull up what anyone is talking about in Washington, D.C. Here's another. This is from the European Central Bank website. Let me read. Moreover, concerns related to sanctions and the possible erosion of the role of major currencies were cited by some central banks in emerging and developing economies. Excuse me, what? Let me read that again. What? The European Central Bank said that? 1 out of 4 such central banks referred to, quote, concerns about sanctions, end quote, or the, quote, anticipation of changes in the international monetary system, end quote, as determinants of their investment exposure to gold. What? Have we not been calling this? The recent accumulation of gold reserves by official institutions tends to be concentrated in very few countries. Turkey, India, and China, for instance, top the list of the largest purchasers, jointly accumulating more than 600 tons of gold since the end of 2021. Now, I blew up this asset so you guys can see this. Okay, I'm going to have to turn my head here to read this. Long-term store of value / inflation hedge. I'm going left to right. Performance during times of crisis. Effective portfolio diversifier. Historical position. No default risk. Serves as a geopolitical diversifier. Highly liquid asset. Concerns about systemic financial risk. Serves as valuable collateral. Lack of political risk. Domestic gold production. It's a policy tool. Concerns about sanctions. There we go. Anticipation of changes in the international monetary system. This is the last one on the far right, part of a de-dollarization policy. Are we heading toward a world of neutral reserve assets or what? Or what? You blink and all of a sudden it's happening. I've been saying on this show week after week after week after week, all you got to do is read the articles, read between the lines, pick up what everyone's putting down, follow the hard money. Okay, now all of these applicable to Bitcoin. Let me read these again. Don't think about gold, think about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin may eventually replace conventional safe haven assets and revolutionize the global financial system, according to a daring claim that is gathering traction. At the moment, gold is becoming the second largest reserve asset in the world, surpassing the euro, since central banks all over the world are rapidly growing their gold reserves. At the same time, less than half of the world's reserves are now in US dollars. This pattern makes a direct comparison between Bitcoin and gold. Both are seen as dependable safe havens in times of crisis, robust long-term stores of value, and efficient inflation hedges. But because Bitcoin is decentralized, impervious to censorship, and always innovating, many people think it is much more potent. Analysts contend that the world is shifting toward neutral reserve assets as bond yields increase, and conventional assets become less desirable as safe havens. Bitcoin is becoming the most likely leader in this change. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications for future Bitcoin, macroeconomic, and digital asset content before we go any further. Now, let's get into his powerful predictions.
I think that the dollar will continue to get debased against assets, and the harder the asset, the scarcer the asset, the more globally accessible the asset. So now we're talking about capital controls where not everyone can go shopping in the United States anymore. So if you have an asset that is accessible to China, accessible to Russia, accessible to Brazil, these assets, these global neutral reserve assets will continue to outperform everything else. Bitcoin will be the winner. Do you think this unwind of Bitcoin and gold becoming the safe haven assets instead of the American bond market was inevitable? Would this have happened no matter who is the president? Yes. I do think Trump, views himself on a mission from God. He's talked about this publicly, in his campaign. He almost got shot in the head, and he views himself, on a mission from God to fix America. I'm not commenting on that. Whatever. It's what he believes. I do think that belief is fast forwarding a lot of this stuff. We went from, hey, let's focus on cutting the government with Doge, and let's take the richest, most, glorified entrepreneur in Elon Musk and have him fix our problems. And in a month, we realized that's not going to work. And then we tried tariffs, and in a week, we realized that's not going to work. So we're very quickly cycling through, this story is going a lot faster. So I will admit that. The story is going probably a bit faster than if Kamala won. But nonetheless, yes, monies want to be won. And monies compete most particularly over their hardness. What's the hardest money that everyone has access to? Hardest in reference into how hard is it to make more of it? And Bitcoin is inevitable from that standpoint, as long as it has the monetary properties we need, as long as it's divisible, as long as it's portable, as long as it's easy to store, as long as it's easy to verify, then it's a question of hardness. And so Bitcoin was designed by us humans. Think about it. Bitcoin is the only market money that we made with our hands to be perfect, and we engineered with technology to make better forever. Bitcoin's a software project. It's going to be getting better forever. We found gold in the ground. We didn't make it. We didn't make it to be perfect. That's the part that people don't understand is we literally purpose-built Bitcoin and continue to work on it to be perfect at the job money is supposed to perform in the market. And so yes, from that standpoint, it's absolutely inevitable. Bitcoin is not optional. What people don't understand is, by you not adopting Bitcoin, you are getting poorer in Bitcoin terms. The meme, have fun staying poor is real. And so it's not optional. It's not like, I'm just not a Bitcoin guy. Well, then you're not I want to live in a big house guy. You're not I like vacations guy. You're not I'm going to eat high quality food guy. You're not a high quality of life guy. You're on a sinking ship. So owning the hardest money isn't optional, because as the rest of the market around you owns the money, you're increasingly falling into abyss. So it's not optional. It's really not. It's just how long does the transition take but it's absolutely inevitable, in my opinion. Do you think there are going to be no pullbacks then in Bitcoin similar to gold? To say that gold didn't have any pullbacks is probably incorrect. I mean, gold just operates over much longer, market cycles. I think Bitcoin market cycles are likely different than the past. Hold on, though. Don't you dare clip this and put it on Twitter that I said this time is different. I do believe we will have bull and bear markets. I absolutely do, because I think that's just human psychology. That's reaching euphoria, and then that's, you have sellers that overwhelm the market, and then people get despair, panic. So I think human beings are predominantly what causes, our emotions are what cause these bull and bear cycles, in my opinion. So I do think we will experience dips and ones that make your stomach turn. Absolutely. But I do think we're in a structurally different era where these 4-year cycles are clearly, this one's clearly different. We're clearly correlated to global liquidity. We're clearly correlated to the macro environment. Bitcoin is clearly the best expression and the most sensitive index as to how much money is being printed around the world. And so if the next few years continue to be a lot of stimulus, a lot of dollar liquidity, then I think Bitcoin's going to continue to catch a bid. I really, really do. Now, it doesn't mean it can't have corrections. I don't know. I don't know who asked this question, but were you around when Bitcoin went from 100,000 to 70,000? The vibes on this show were very not good. Bitcoin down 30-35%. I thought you said Bitcoin was the greatest ever. So, I don't know. Is that a dip? Did that make people's stomach turn? I'd say so, judging by the emotions in the chat. So Bitcoin's still going to have these corrections, 20%, 25%, 30%, inevitably, maybe 70, 80%. But I think that 70 and 80% comes from like $1 million a coin. So I can imagine Bitcoin ticking $1 million a coin and falling all the way down to 300,000 at some point, years ahead. Who knows? I don't know, but I definitely don't want to assume that market cycles are over. Sounds dangerous. Do you think gold will outperform Bitcoin through the end of 2025? No. I think gold has been leading. Central banks have not yet started buying Bitcoin. That's the big differentiator right now. Bitcoin's still too small of an asset, and I don't think any central bank wants to be first into buying Bitcoin. That's what's, really driving gold. Central banks are buying, we just went over it on the show, a tremendous amount of gold. China's buying a tremendous amount of gold. China's mining Bitcoin. Russia's mining Bitcoin. These countries own Bitcoin. These sovereign wealth funds own Bitcoin. Don't make a mistake about it. But their allocations have to be smaller because the asset's smaller. You make too big of a move, you're going to run the price. And so front run yourself. So what we've seen is gold leads Bitcoin directionally, then Bitcoin catches up and some. And so I continue to think that will be the case, and I think Bitcoin will vastly outperform gold in the grand scheme of things.
According to Jack Mallers, the US dollar will continue to depreciate in relation to tangible assets, particularly those that are internationally accessible and in short supply. According to him, when nations like China, Russia, and Brazil are subject to capital controls, they will look for universally accessible neutral assets, and Bitcoin will finally prevail in this competition. He claims that gold and Bitcoin are replacing US bonds as the new safe havens, and this change would have occurred regardless of the president. But because policies are being tried and abandoned so rapidly, he believes Trump's strong, mission-driven approach is accelerating this process. According to Mallers, the foundation of all conflict is the hardness of money, or how difficult it is to manufacture more of it. Bitcoin is the hardest currency ever created, since it is purpose-built with technology that will continue to improve indefinitely, unlike gold, which people simply find in the ground. He believes that Bitcoin is inevitable since it has all the qualities of money, including being divisible, portable, easy to retain, and simple to verify. Regarding gold, Mallers says he doesn't think it will beat Bitcoin in the long run. Although central banks are now making large purchases of gold, they have not yet begun purchasing Bitcoin because it is still a minor asset, and they do not want to cause the price to swing against them. But generally, he believes Bitcoin will continue to beat gold. Lastly, he claims that Bitcoin will no longer be valued in US dollars in a future hyper-Bitcoinized world. As an alternative, all prices will be expressed in SATs, with a sandwich costing 2,000 S8s. Bitcoin will simply fulfill its purpose as the ultimate form of money by becoming the currency that consumers use to purchase goods and services. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications for future Bitcoin, macroeconomic, and digital asset content. And as always, happy investing.